Good evening, guys. Thank you for joining us, and I'll call to order the March 12th, 2025 school board meeting. I'll ask you all to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, item 3, we're going to go into executive session. 3.1, request to enter into executive session pursuant to Title 1, Chapter 13, Section 405, 6F of the MRSA for the purpose of discussing confidential records and pursuant to Title 1, Chapter 13, Section 405, 6A of MRSA for the purpose of discussing personnel matters. I will make a motion to head into executive session. Anybody second that motion? I'll second. All in favor? Okay.
Same room? You don't need to bring anything?
Because you have to. Yeah. All right, welcome back. Item 5, comments from the chair. I'm the chair. See, that's what I'm saying. You can get the camera in front of me and I don't pay attention. I do not have any comments. We have a very long budget that we need to read through, so I'm going to skip my comments for now. Number 6, approve minutes from the meeting of 1/15/2025. I will make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Item 7, adjustments to the agenda. We do need to add an adjustment to the agenda. That will be on 11.6. This is a personnel item. There is no action on this. It's just a letter. It's just a report. On the agenda. Item 8, public comment.
Let me check online.
Public comment. All right. Item 9, committee reports. 9.1, financial committee. 9.1.1, payroll. I approved on 1/31 and 2/28, and Bob approved on 2/14. The AP warrants, I approved on 2/4, and Bob approved on 2/5. Nate, Bob, and Joanne approved on 2/14, and I approved on 2/3. Is that 3/3 and 3/4? That read my own right. Item 9.2, policy committee.
The policy committee met last week. We reviewed the February policy development news that came from Main School Management. If you did not get it, do you get those yourselves through your email? Okay. I put it in your packet, if not. But that policy memo was regarding AC, ACAA, ACAAR, ACAB, and ACABR based on changes to Title IX regulations. And so the letters had notified us that the 2020 Title IX regulations are in effect and asked boards to review their policies because some had preemptively moved to the 2024 rules, and then if we had to redact those changes. And so we reviewed our policies and we're in line with the 2020 law currently, with the exception of a couple small references. And I brought them if you want to see them, or they're in the board policy review folder. But we are going to hold off. We're in line with the law. We're going to hold off on making any changes at this time because we expect more to come out of legislative sessions anyway, and we'll probably be looking at lots of policies. But it felt important to let you know that we had reviewed them and that we're in compliance. Also, just want to say that we had a quick review of a sample cell phone policy that's provided to us by MSMA, but we tabled that conversation until the next time we meet.
Thank you. Item 10, superintendent's report. Oh, excuse me, sorry. I was jumping in.
Okay. In the financial report, with 30% of the year remaining, 37% of our budget remains. That makes me nervous. That's not a whole lot of wiggle room to get through the rest of the year. If you have your financial report and you look at page 3, one line that you'll see that looks different, probably since we looked in January, is most of the way down the page where it says tuition secondary private, and you can see that there's $48,646.92 in the negative in that line. We have a student who moved into our district in the early fall we had not budgeted for, who requires special purpose private school programming, and so we're responsible for paying for that. That is going to utilize any of the wiggle room we thought we had captured with tuition funds when we met last time, and is going to continue to make me concerned about how we're going to get through the rest of the year. I'm going to reach out to check in with our auditors to ask about how to access our reserve account, because we do have a reserve account for special education exactly for this purpose, to help us to pay for high-cost students that we hadn't anticipated. I think there's $60,000 in that account, and so that'll help to buffer us for the rest of the year. But I just wanted to make sure that you knew where to find that line in your financial report moving forward. Otherwise, things are tracking as they should, but our budget is so tight that it is watching every little penny as we go through the rest of the year, as we always do. The other concern, of course, is like last year, I'm not able at this point to say that I have carried forward to apply to the next budget as I had hoped to when we met in January. But we still have a month of this process, and as we go through, we'll be able to see what we really do have and is there anything that we can apply. But otherwise, that's I'm using the financial report.
Thank you. 10.2 district updates.
All right, I'm also going to keep mine really short because we have a lot to do. We're really happy to have the transition to spring. I was thinking today as I was standing outside doing dismissal that a week ago we had 2 feet of snow and ice, and last week we were barely able to be outside because everything was so icy. And so I actually welcome them up. I never thought I'd really say that, but it's nice to see spring. Last year we celebrated Read Across America Week. We had a Spirit Week also, and all the days were connected with a different book. This year we had every book was written by or illustrated by Chris Van Dusen, who is a main author, who happens to be our author who will be coming for our author visit at the end of this month. So it was really fun to be starting to generate some excitement and making sure our kids were really connected to his books. So that was fun. And like we typically do for Read Across America Week, we had a community read to end our Friday. And so special thanks to Erica Castillo, Jessica Bellinger, Valerie Hilbert, Leslie Calise, Jennifer Harris, and Morgan Bigu, who came in to read to our classes. Mr. Hines, you have 1 more year. I'm going to plan on it for next year for you. There's your notice. We've begun our 3rd trimester. School choice placements are being finalized. Kindergarten enrollment has started. Pre-K MOUs are in process. And so here we are at the budget getting ready to look to next year. I think I'm going to stop there just for the sake of time.
1.1 review of contract between West Bath and the Casco Bay Cleaning. This needs action. It's in our board
It is in your board packet. So this is a contract for the school year beginning July 1st and running through next June 30th. We had negotiated last year that if we were going to continue our contract that we would continue it at a flat rate. So we'd anticipated that it would be flat. However, through meetings I've had with them, we've renegotiated, and this contract is reduced from our current by $5,000. And so it is here for our review, approval, and ready to sign off on it if that's something that you're in control of.
I was just curious, you're pleased with the service?
We've had growing pains, but there's a lot to figure out, and I think we're on the right track. We sort of have a plan of how we're moving forward and checking time frame for when it's going to happen. So I think it is our best case scenario.
Motion to approve that contract? Anybody?
Make the motion.
Motion approved. Second? All in favor? Any questions or discussion? I've been forgetting to ask that to you all after Elise. 1.2 review of contract between West Bath School and the Bath Bus Service. This we are going to hold off on action just until we have a signed agreement with RSU1. But I do believe that's in your board packet. I'm sure you guys have reviewed that too. But
I felt it was appropriate to still bring it forward tonight because it is what's reflected in our budget. So this proposed contract is a 3-year contract. It's an increase over the current year of $5,000, but it's flat for 3 years. And so that will not increase again for the next 3 years. What I had let the contractor know is that we would be holding off on considering it or on signing it until we had a tuition agreement approved, but that I would bring it forward for your consideration and any feedback you might have.
I don't have any feedback. I appreciate the 3 years flat rate. And he seems to be doing very well in this situation, so it's good to have any comments, questions. So
Okay.
we'll table that till next, we'll table that action till next.
Until when it's appropriate to
Yeah.
act.
Yep. We don't have to vote on that or anything like that, but to table that.
We should force you.
Okay, okay, thank you. That makes sense. I will make a motion to approve, to table the, not approve, sorry, to table the, contract between West High School and Bath Bus Service.
Second.
All in favor? Alright. 11.4, calendar waiver consideration for the Department of Education.
11.3.
Oh, I skipped that, sorry. Stout. Thank you. On my toes. The out-of-state field trip request, and this is action 2. This is in your board packet too as well.
We have a request from our 5th grade teacher to bring students to Boston on May 16th. They will take the train from Brunswick that morning at 7:10 a.m., bring it into North Station, then we'll take the T to Boston Common. From there, we'll have lunch, do the Freedom Trail, backtrack back to go to the Old State House, hit Fall Revere House, still contemplating Old North Church, which is one of my favorites, and then walk back to North Station and take the train back home to be back at 8:40. This is part of their learning expedition around the Revolutionary War. It provides a tremendous experience for them in terms of their background. We have, in the past couple of years, successfully fundraised the entire amount, and so it's not at a cost to the district, and it's been an incredible experience. I think that's something that the board will consider.
Alright, and so this is an action, so I would make a motion to approve this out-of-state field trip. Second? Second. All in favor? Yes. Excellent. That'll be fun. Well, good job on raising all the money. Can I ask what it was that we did?
What the fundraiser is? Popcorn sales.
Oh, I love it. I didn't get any, nobody asked me this year. What is it? Popcorn sales.
And
Or
their
a bunch
wellness
last year.
policy approved popcorn.
Yeah, it was very good. I had a lot of selections.
Oh.
I'm mad I missed it. Sad, I should say. 11.4, calendar waiver, now we're at 11.4. Calendar waiver consideration for the Department of Education. We need to do action on this. This is just a letter, we're giving Emily the approval to send a letter on our behalf to the state
If you choose to.
if we choose to, yes.
So, after the events in Lewiston last year, we were applied for a waiver and had 2 of our days waived. And so, with the safety concern we had in December that closed our schools and RSC1 schools, when I suggested to Patrick Manuel that we at least see if we can have that day waived, because we were essentially told you can't open school. Their board agreed to, and they have applied, and they were denied. And so it's very likely that we also will be denied. But in talking with him, RSU1 would like us to consider still sending a letter just so that we are able to show that it wasn't just one district that was impacted, it was 2. And if there's, other days that we miss the spring because of snow or because of electricity, because of down trees, that might change the circumstances of getting it on record. So it seems like a bad idea. And so I had put the draft letter from you all in the board packet for your review.
Just curious, did they give a reason for denial?
They said that first the school system would have to show that you really tried to make up the days. And so we've applied for waivers a couple of times. And so last time with the Lewiston situation, we didn't have to do that. But in talking with this deputy commissioner, he said that, well, that was really so statewide and impacted so many people where this is really localized. I also get the perspective, and he didn't say this, but I wouldn't want, if someone was going to make a threat to a school so that school is closed, I wouldn't want the response then to be, oh, it's okay, it's going to be waived. And so I have that perspective too. But I still feel like it's the appropriate thing to at least ask, because I'd like to think we're through with winter, but we don't know yet what the rest of the year is going to look like. And to have a situation to be told that we'd like you to not go to school, is different than calling a snow day and having some choice in there.
So at least that would give a potential option in the future. So this we need to approve. First, do you have any questions or comments before we vote? No? Okay. I will make a motion to approve the calendar waiver consideration, or no, excuse me, the letter. Excuse me, I'll make a motion to approve the letter being sent on our behalf. Second? Nate? All in favor? Yes. Thank you. Thank you for sending that out on our behalf. 11.5, the first reading of the school 2025-2026 school budget. Am I reading this or are you? Okay, thank
If
goodness.
you'd like to.
No,
I wouldn't be opposed.
no, I'll be sitting here like, oh, where are we? I'll be backtracking. Are we gonna do that?
It's mine.
Yes, did you have any? Yeah, I did too. Yeah. Every time you don't, you eat which is nice. So
What,
I
you're
always
looking
have
at my
to
paper?
be, my lunchtime, no matter if somebody's scheduling a meeting, I'm new, I'm like,
You're looking for
and I
notes.
was like, just so annoyed, I was like, oh, schedule this, you know, and then I just got home at 1:30, and then I was just like, I ate up too, so.
Jesus, oh,
Don't. Oh,
I know.
God. And I get it. I'll be patient.
Pass out to Ethan. Would you guys like to review a copy? I'd love to see one. Yeah.
Welcome to Unit 1.
Yeah.
That's the detail. She's so different when I love her. It's just, we have to.
Okay. So this is the first reading of our budget. This is a proposed budget that is zero-based because I believe that we only should be asking for our needs based on our current reality rather than hypothetical situations. There are a few challenges with this budget, and one is like last year we budgeted so tight that there's little, if any, funds to carry forward, which is always unfortunate. But we've had expenses that are outside of our control that we're aware of. I feel pretty positive about the starting point for this budget in terms of the proposal, but I know that there's work to do to make sure it really meets the needs of our school and our pre-K-12 community and the West Bath community as a whole. And so that's the beginning of the process. You'll see that as we go through the budget that I've made sure to update all of our retirement, workers' comp, unemployment, added in paid family medical leave expenses, and so that's a new line for all of our areas. Those funds last year, when we were planning for half a year of paid family medical leave, were under the school board expenses. So when we get to that line, you'll see that that's a reduction because now they're in the regular cost centers. When we go through the budget, generally what I do is I highlight where there are changes. There are some challenges with comparisons when you look at the current budget to what's being proposed. We had approved our budget before negotiations have been finalized. And so actually, if you look at salaries in the current budget as compared to what's being proposed, when you look at the increases, that's not an increase, it's an actual increase that was sort of hypothetical before negotiations. And so it's not an easy read like it typically is, just so that you're aware of that. And so what we'll do is, again, sort of go through the budget and talk about where there are increases and decreases or changes. And you certainly can stop me along the way and ask questions, but we have many, many more Wednesdays to begin to talk about those. So where this is the first school budget for some of you. This is the overall document for our cost centers. And so the cost centers generally align with your last 2 digits of your code. But as we go through, we'll be going back and forth between this budget document and this cover sheet. So we're going to start with regular instruction. Overall, that is an increase of 7.33%. And we'll talk about now what makes that up. So we're on this document now. The first piece, you can see an increase in salaries. That is an increase based on no changes in our staffing. Those are contractual obligations. It does have a retirement within that line, and then budgeted for a new teacher within there as well. Again, no change in staffing levels for salary ed techs. There is an increase in health insurance. Some of that is due to just rates increased. Our contract allows us to budget for prior year, so we always are working off what we know. But we had some staff members this year who mid-year changed their plans, and so that impacts our budget currently, but it also means it's an increase in what you would expect. Again, when I say you can't have easy budget years like this. There is a decrease in health insurance for regular ed techs. I'm not going to go through like all those changes with Social Security, retirement, unemployment, paid filling, medical leave. Those are all based exactly on the percentages that, based on the salaries within the budget. So the next thing we'll talk about is tuition elementary public. That actually falls into cost center 2 on your budget document. But at the elementary level, you can see that there's a slight decrease of 7.93%. We budgeted for 45 students at a 4% increase. And the tuition elementary private has increased by 202%, but that's just a change of 1 student to 3 students who are electing to go to private school next year rather than public school through our school choice. There is an increase in supplies instructional, not because we've asked for more, but because everything just costs more. And then a slight decrease in instructional equipment. Instructional equipment includes a portion of our copier contract. There is a request for some chairs in kindergarten, a request for a cabinet for science materials, and a request for 1 desk. So that is what's in that line. That's a decrease of 2%. Pre-K, still in cost center 1, is exactly the same. We're still budgeting for 12 pre-K students, 8 at the Y, 4 at Head Start. I don't know that Head Start will come to fruition, and so I'll talk with the Y about whether or not we have the capacity, or they have the capacity to have 4 more students. I don't know those answers yet, but kept the budget based on what we have right now. So that is exactly the same. The top of page 2. Looking at instruction secondary, this is tuition again. And so there is an increase at the high school level of 7.27%, a decrease at the private school of 47.18%. Again, that was 4 students who then, now there's 2 who will be attending private school. And so if you look at cost center 2, then our tuition is an increase of 1.62% over the current year. And so now we're moving into cost center 3. The first is resource class placement. And the beginning of this is the bulk of special education program here at the West Bath School. And so the first place you can actually see a reduction of 18.82%. This budget has a reduction of 1 special education teacher. So moving from 2.7 down to 1.7 special education teachers. Salary ed techs, there's not a change in proposed staffing there, so that's a contractual increase. And you can see the decreases in health insurance, one based on, the first one based on having reduction in staff, the other just based on reduction in plans that employees are selecting. As I continue to move down, this is looking at cost center 04. This is for special education tuition. And so we pay special education tuition for students who are at public schools who are in a specialized program, like an autism program or a life skills program or behavioral program, or there's a program at the high school that's like an alternative education program. So those programs all have a cost associated with them above tuition. And so that's what those fees generally are. So the tuition elementary public is for students at the 6 through 8 who are in a specialized program. And so there's actually a decrease there based on our actuals. And there's also a decrease of tuition secondary public from $14,000 to 0. But you can also see that there is an increase. Actually, that's not right. I will make that correction. That is supposed to be above. We've got a student. We do not have an elementary private student, so that will go up a line. We'll make that change. Yeah, it's not a change in the cost, but it's just the cost line. You will see, though, an increase of tuition secondary private of $97,294, and that is for a tuition at a special purpose private school, one that we refer back to in our current financial report, which does change cost center 04. It's an increase of 304% for that cost center. Gifted and talented programming is back to regular instruction 1. Cost center 1, and there's not a change in any of our gifted and talented programming in terms of no additional employees, but there is an increase in salary and benefits contractually. There also is an increase in supplies instructional, but really it's just a shift from I did have them in the regular ed, like overall general supplies, and they're supposed to be in the gifted and talented supplies. Gifted and talented is one of those cost centers that actually is supposed to be 100% reimbursable. But because we're a minimum receiver, we don't get that reimbursement. We still have to have everything right back in our the right cost centers.
We don't even get a percentage.
But we're required to have it, and if we were not a minimum receiver, then that would get back 100%. So the next section is elementary co-curricular. That allows for us to be able to access experts in field work, pay for entrance fees. I've kept that flat. I think it's been flat for the 18 years that I've been here at 4,500, and we've made do with that. When we need more, that's when we access grants for other things or fundraise. So then next on this budget document is social work. This goes back into cost center 03. So there's no changes to our social work program. There's increases in salary and benefits contractually. Next is nursing services. That comes into cost center 07. Likewise, I've kept everything really status quo in terms of our staffing. There's a small decrease in supplies based on their requests, but there's no changes in the budget otherwise. And then moving down, continuing in cost center 07 is improvement of instruction. So this houses our stipends for all of our committees. It also has hourly time if we needed to have paid time, like during the summer or after school. But most of it is committee Schedule B time, and so that's just a slight increase of 1.47. The cost in our contract for hourly rates went up, but I decreased the amount that I was budgeting for of the amount that we would be working outside of school hours. And then there are no further changes there. And so that line is just a minimal increase of 0.5%. Instructional staff training, that is tuition rates for teachers and ed techs and administrators. And they have the contractual ability to be able to take up to 3 graduate courses a year, provided that it is based on their job that they're currently doing. And so we actually, in the contract negotiations we just had, we had some limitations around who can take courses to try to bring this number down. And we are going to need the number what we have right now. We have still the same number of teachers who are taking courses that we had in this current year. So that stays flat. Still in cost center 07 is library, and only changes that you'll see here within library are within salaries and benefits. There is an increase in supplies instructional based on her requests, and other expenses is not really the increase that it looks like. That pays for our catalog system, and it's just the cost of things increasing. So that is library. Next is technology. So first is salary and benefits, and if we get halfway down, the first places that you start to see some increases is internet connectivity fees. So that's our web hosting and our domain fees. I've learned that we've been getting a free ride with our web hosting. We're going to pay for that moving forward, so that we own all of our own website material. Contracted fees, that is our student information system, our Infinite Campus. So that is how that's the licensing fee for that. Computer lease, we have a 4-year lease for our teacher computers, and that is up this year, and so we need to start a new 4-year lease, which is why there's an increase, because it's a new lease. Once we, the plan has been that when we have new machines for teachers, then those machines the teachers currently have then get rolled to ed techs, and then the machines that ed techs have can go to surplus or get sold, which then goes back into our repair bills to be able to cut down on repair costs. And so that is the plan there, and it's continuing to move forward in that manner. Supplies, non-instructional is a decrease. It is our printer maintenance, it's a couple of hotspots, and it's our texting app for me for how I communicate to families when we have changes in schedules or emergencies. And supplies instructional is an increase slightly. That is a request for a 3D printer. It's our educational software, a collection of headphones to just replace. We need to have new ones for the new students who come in, and then to replace those that need to be replaced through the year. There's some small general supplies. There's a projector replacement, and then there's a set of 20 Chromebooks. So Chromebooks has been, I have to look back to see when we first started going one-to-one. During the time that we had COVID funding, we were able to purchase our annual supply of Chromebooks through COVID funding. So this is actually the first time we've had to put it back into our local budget in several years. I did ask what would happen if we did not purchase Chromebooks. We have currently 2 spares, and we have a class whose machines are aged out. And so we do not have the capacity to not replace them if we want to remain one-to-one with our students. So that's a discussion that we can have, but if we're going to remain with the programming we currently have, then we would need to purchase the set of Chromebooks. Student assessment, this is a portion of an employee's salary connected to the technology salary above, and then at the bottom, supplies non-instructional, that is our licensing fees for our NWEA testing program that we utilize and that the state utilizes for state testing. Okay, and so that closes off 07, and then next we look at system administration, which overall is a decrease of 6.34. So the Board of Education is the first portion of that. And there's no changes here. This has our legal fees, it has auditor's fees, it has the insurance for the board. The other item reduction is what I had said was the half of the year of the paid family medical leave that we had budgeted for, which now is dispersed among all the cost centers, and so that no longer needs to be in the board budget. Office of the Superintendent is also system administration, and that line is up slightly at 1.02%. It's just a change in benefits, so the alignment of paid for medical and the paid in retirement, Social Security. Special Services Administration, this goes back to cost center 03. So this reason we have this is that we used to have a special ed director who would manage all of our special education services, and would attend all of our 6 through 12 meetings and do all of our case management for students who are off-site and in all of our other 6 through 12 programming, or in students in hospitalized settings, or students in special purpose private schools. We no longer have a special education director, not because we haven't tried, but I get to wear that hat. But what we still have in this line is the special ed contracted services, and these are K-12 services for our contractors for speech and OT and psych examining. Physical therapy, when we need it, we don't have a need currently. And there is an increase in that that's pretty significant. It's a 19.69% increase. That is because there's a change in how, because we're using contractors for our students, we need to pay those contracting fees, where that hadn't always necessarily been the case. But so that's K through 12. So a student who might be getting speech services at the high school who utilizes a contractor, we get billed for those. So that is a K to 12 cost. The numbers of students have gone up and the rate of the contracts have gone up. And then other expenses for special education that have also increased just slightly. That houses main care seed money for special purpose private school programming. It has our extended school year programming. It's where I hold special education supplies. It's also where I house funding for the expenses for students who are out of district, especially if they're in private settings where when their IEP then says we need to have this, I have to be able to provide, and so that's where that all gets housed. And so those pieces have, that has increased also, and that's why we have a 19.74% increase again in that special education. That all goes back to cost center 03. I'll be honest, the hard part for me is that these are system-wide expenses, and I'm making a cut here at the elementary school, and you don't see my cut, and that's tricky for me. But it's all part of sort of the system programming. System administration is the office of the school principal, and that is down 7.73%. And you can see where there's either no changes in salary or there is a decrease. We had a change in staff. And so then that allows for changes in benefits that work all the way through. There's no changes in any of the other budgeting lines within these lines here. Central services is the financial portion of what we added to the office of the principal to then become office of superintendent. And we are required by state law to budget for a central office. Like we have to have funds in both categories, and that's why people are paid out of multiple places. And so this cost center line is also down 2.24%. Where you see an increase is other expenses. That is our financial software that allows us to keep track of our finances and to communicate everything to the state. Then we are looking at operation and maintenance. Operation and maintenance overall is up 2.1%. Our utility services have tracked appropriately and the same without increases, which surprises me for many years since I've kept that flat. Our cleaning services, it looks like an increase because you'll recall that it also was something just like teacher negotiations. We negotiated contracts after we already had a budget and moved some other pieces around. But I want you to just recall this actually, our contract is actually a decrease in what we're paying currently. Repairs maintenance, I have increased this slightly. This is the base amount just based on expenses for maintaining the building. Everything, every contractor, everything that you touch is just more expensive. And there's a risk of, if we were to keep it flat, of not being able to tend to small repairs or take care of things to keep the building in place. Usually I meet with the facilities committee prior to this meeting. I didn't because I wasn't looking to add necessarily projects to our budget, but I want to talk about a couple of things that are not in this line unless the board chooses to add them. And so really the document, if you've been on the board or around the board for a long time, you know that we worked through the building to be able to update shelving and flooring and classroom spaces for many, many years. And we added unit ventilators, and we got most of the way till we got to this end. And then we couldn't justify continuing. And so when you look at sort of this space here, these are projects that every year the facilities committee has looked at and said, oh, we're going to add these back in. And every year we add them in. It doesn't happen. We take them back out of the budget. And so when I say deferred improvements, you can see costs here that are flooring and shelving. Last year we had proposed to do 2 classes, and so that was here in proposed projects. We ended up not doing it because we needed to pay for our custodial contract. Pavement patching is also something that we always talk about needing to do. It's not in our budget. We had a very generous donor who came to do the work and then didn't bill me somehow. And so that's something, though, we've got to make sure that we're keeping up with our parking lot, not in our budget. The boiler, our boilers, anyone in West Bath will tell you we have wonderful boilers and that they're brand new and they're beautiful. But I've been here for 17 years and the boilers have been here longer than me, and so they're no longer brand new, but they're working really well. The only reason I have the boiler on this list is because we had a repair that was needed, which is just general repair and maintenance, and had the realization that the way the boilers are plumbed, I cannot isolate one boiler to repair it and still have the other boiler functioning. And so if at some point we feel that there's a need as our boilers are aging to isolate them so that we can, if one breaks, I can just turn on the other and use that, because right now we cycle, we don't run them both at the same time anyway. But to isolate them, that's the cost to isolate. Pole light repair, this is something that we'll need to figure out how to do. We have a pole light that was hit by a plow. I'm getting cost for it, but I'm worried if I straighten it that it's not going to be strong enough to remain standing. I know because I repaired the electrical in it last year that if it snaps, I lose all my lights. I also worry about when you let things go and don't repair things, the general appearance of school, then that leads to other people deciding to vandalize or litter, and so that piece I need to tackle, also not in the budget. Over here is just ongoing discussions of things that we've talked about that we just need to keep on our horizon, not in the budget. And then always we need to talk about our roofing. So on the top right you see the roofing forecast. It is time. It is time for us. Our roofs are in 3 sections. It is one is this year that it's would be sort of up for being replaced. One is next year, one is the year after. We had decided that we would go out to bid all at the same time. We will send out the bid this spring or summer for the following summer. So not in the budget, not in the conversation, but also just something to be aware of. So as we continue to talk about priorities for this budget, I just wanted you to have this list. None of these items are here. That 60,000 is just to keep us up and running and keep us being able to do repairs as we need to, and have all of our inspections done, and all of our monthly fees paid for.
So, can I understand, so the proposed projects are not?
Nothing is in there.
Okay.
No. The one thing that when we had met last week as a finance committee, I have upgrades to our sprinkler system, or at least to the control panel of the sprinkler system that I had on that list. And that's just a non-negotiable, that's a safety item, that just gets done. But these are all things that we just have to talk about. Where does it fit into the grand scheme of a budget increase, and or where does it not fit in? And so without having facilities committee meetings, not by fault of facilities committee, but just by the way the year has been, I just felt like I didn't feel like I couldn't prioritize those over other things.
And the roofing is just the shingles?
No, it's roof replacement. It's a 30-year roof replacement. Yeah. We had a 10-year sort of cover repair done. That bought us 10 years, but now we're up for a 30-year roof replacement. So we've been talking about it every year. Like initially, we had asked, we had budgeted for $30,000 or $40,000 per year. We did that for the first 4 years, but we never made it through the budget advisory committee with that because we have the town capital funds or be able to help to support that or investment fund. And
Well,
so,
it's a long-term capital improvement fund.
so
the
we've always been
investment
asked to not
committee-
put money towards that because that money would be there when we're ready. And so I keep that there just so that we keep talking about it.
Gotcha.
The investment committee recommends to the select board how the money might be invested. But it's up to the select board to decide when they're gonna spend some of that money.
So
Yes.
we'd have to petition the select board.
Huh?
Town meeting decides we're gonna.
Okay, town meeting.
We'd have to,
But I'm on the investment committee, and we constantly are looking at when there's a cost like this arising and have the investments timed so that we could have cash available to do one of these jobs when it's appropriate and approved by the town meeting.
And I feel like going to out to bid in the summer allows for all of that work that has to happen in terms of the investment committee and town meeting and, you know, just in terms of contractors, it's gonna take that much time to get people ready to be able to then do the work the following year.
So we hit the hour and a half mark. We gotta vote to approve whether they're gonna continue on our conversation, which I would make a motion to approve. Second, all in favor?
Can I ask a question? Am I allowed to ask a question?
Who made the motion? You made the motion.
I made the
Did you-
motion and Joanne seconded. It was
Okay.
Sorry, I'm jumping ahead. I just wanna make sure we got, I'm just paying attention to the clock.
We have a public question.
Yes, I believe.
Right. So, well, a couple things. When we talked about this at select board, when you go out to bid, Emily, when you're asking for year 1, year 2, year 3, can you also ask for all at one time what that reduction would be?
Yeah, so actually we had talked about doing it both ways. And so initially we were going to do them in phases and the investment committee asked us to do it all at once because, you know, I don't have them on this paper, but I did get costs that showed that it'd be better for us to do it all at one time.
Setting up staging, setting
Yeah.
it down, everything, that would be it.
But I do intend to have it both ways so that we
Just,
can
I
make
mean,
a
just
choice.
that there's, certainly federal funding in all aspects is at risk across all portals. And so we don't know what's the we're hoping that from all of this. And when you look at this, you know, or the roofing or all that, how do we manage if we don't get it? And we had that same conversation, a very candid conversation with the county commissioner, with that as well on, you know, what are you gonna do when the funding doesn't happen, what's plan B?
That's a good point.
Piece it out is what you're thinking.
Well, but even from that
Having
perspective, or
options,
anything
yeah.
that we're talking about here, you know, if we lose our funding, what is plan B?
Yeah.
That the town doesn't take, our constituents don't take it on the chin to keep this, what is your plan B? I think that's important as you guys go through this.
I think because you did have it pieced out and then it was just one, so yeah, no, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, so that closes up maintenance. The next section is student transportation. So overall, this is cost center 10. Overall, that's an increase of 8.31%. But let's talk about that for just a second. So you already know that the overall contract for the bus services is going up by $5,000 if we move forward with that contract. And then that's going to be flat for 3 years. And the only other change is that you'll see in student transportation purchase price, I increased that from 10,000 to 20,000. That is special education transportation. And so that transports students who are in special education settings that are required to have transportation. And so going back to sort of thinking about special purpose private schools, that is the current cost of what we're paying for transportation. So I'm budgeting for that same amount. And then finally is food service. I'll be honest, there's a lot of questions about what's going to happen with food service, and it's something that I can't necessarily predict. Right now, the community is contributing $50,000, and when I look at our expenses, we're right in line. That keeps us right at zero, based on what we have current need for federal funds coming in and state funds coming in. I don't know what's going to be there, but I also can't operate on, like I said, I can only base on what budget based on the knowns. And so I'm going to ask for what we need, and then if things change, we'll have to readdress. I think if things change, more likely it will be that families would need to contribute like they used to do. But those are unknowns that I can't predict and change day to day. So overall, then, what that means is our total proposed budget is $4,906,575.70. It's an increase of $239,021.14, or 5.12 to the total proposed budget. Our state subsidy is $334,773.60, which is an increase of $36,431.01. At this time, I'm not able to apply carry forward. We'll see where we are over the next few weeks. And so that means our increase to the local contribution is 5.24%. That concludes the first reading.
Thank you.
Comments? You're just saying
Talk about
so
it.
and then
Yeah.
Quite a few things to go over things. All right. As well, public comment.
Actually, first we have the adjustment to the agenda.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, I didn't move it down. That would be 11.6.
11.6. Okay, so I put this in your packet just this morning when I received it, so you may not have seen it. But we have a retirement for Kathleen Jameson, who is an educational technician too. And so her letter says that it's to inform you I'll be retiring from a position as an Ed Tech 2 at the end of the current school year. It's been a pleasure working at West Bath School. It's been a fun, wonderful, and rewarding experience. I appreciate the opportunity you've given me to spend time helping children and seeing them grow behaviorally and academically. They put smiles on my faces. However, it's time for me to move into the next phase of my life, which is retiring with my husband, enjoying life, traveling, and spending time doing my hobbies. When I met with Kathy this morning, I knew it was coming, although I didn't have a letter, so I was sort of pretending it wasn't coming. This is her second career. She had a career in town office, I think in Brunswick, and worked in the financials within that office, and then needed something to do, and so applied for schools. She came to us first as a substitute for one of a student with really significant needs, and worked one-to-one in a tutoring capacity. And then when that student transitioned back into school, continued on with that student as an ed tech. And during the time that she's been here, she is reliable, she is dependable, she has a smile on her face, she's prompt, she is the ideal employee, and we are going to miss her very much. But I'm so glad that she and her husband get to retire together, and they have big plans. So I'm incredibly grateful to Kathy Jameson, and we are definitely going to miss her.
Yes, she is a wonderful person, and West Bath is definitely fortunate to have her. I've had many interactions with her, and she was wonderful, so I'm sad to hear that too. But happy for her too at the same time. Thank you, Emily. All right, now 12, public comments.
So have you received the cost for your pre-K to 5, 6 to 8, and 9 to 12 from the state?
Yes. Well, so actually, ask me that question again.
So do you have the cost per student?
Cost per student, I do. I don't have it currently, but I do have it. I can even look it up for you and hand it to you.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
I had some questions on really what the true cost for K to 5, or pre-K to 5, 6 to 8, and I've had a couple people ask me this question, so I just want to make sure I have the knowledge to share it back with them. When we look at the total cost of this facility and our students, I believe we need to add to that the cost of administration and the maintenance and everything that contributes to that per student per year cost per head. And when I tabulated out, and I'm happy to share the numbers with you, what I used last year's numbers, we don't have this year's, I came in almost at like $24,000 to $25,000 per student. And I'm trying to determine if that's accurate, are my numbers correct based upon the information? Because that's quite a bit higher than the $16,000 that we labeled as that. So if I could get an understanding of how that breaks down, from that would be terrific, because I just see, I've got a big delta that I can't figure out. And then where are we also, I don't know if have we made commitments on where the students are going? I know that was a thing that came to the,
Yeah, we're still in negotiations.
what, can you share what districts are prepared to consider accepting our kids, or who you've spoken with?
There currently are, all the communities who currently are housing and working with our students are continuing to have our students moving forward.
And what have you seen in the students' requests for school choice? That's what I love this. Have we seen an increase year over year on where we are? I know we just started that, but where are we year to year?
So I can pull that information for you and get that back to you in a communication also, but I'll tell you the general trend has been, the highest we've been is at about 24%, and then we've started to decrease again. And so we had a bit of a peak, and then more of our students are, I'll tell you where we are right now for this, coming into this budget year, because I have my fingertips.
So we've never gone above the 25%,
No.
and we've never had to pull that, that pool, which is good.
So for next year, it's at 23% of school choice. So
And we're still open for that, and there's still submissions acceptable?
no, that window's closed.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're 26, 23.
23.
And this, I don't know if anyone watched the last select board meeting. The town has received a significant uptick in requests from Saginaw County, in the county funds. And I was very, very candid with him, probably more so than he wanted to hear, and just asked him, what do you, as we hear the rumblings of federal funds coming to Maine, across everything, school, county, the whole 9 yards, I would encourage you guys to, as you pull your budget together, to how do you accommodate lack of funding? Not just in the roof, but in everything that we see here, so that we can make our community feel that they're heard. Because there's a lot of people with the increase from last year and the increase from this year, and the COLA, and I've had to comment on, and I know you've had your contract negotiations, but an 8% increase for your teachers when COLA is under 3. It's hard for people to take, in today's economy, and it's certainly getting worse. I'm just trying to share what people have shared with me, that, I'd love to see you say that the raise is based upon COLA, which is what even in the town office, we have it written into it's based upon COLA, because everyone receives that same rate. So the increase is then consistent across the taxpayers to what they're paying for. And I think that we need to be a little bit more cognizant of that as you guys go out and negotiate your next contract, thinking of the folks in the community that are paying that.
I think can't speak too much of the contracts, but I think to make sure we were in line with our neighboring schools for what the salaries were for the teachers, that's kind of where those percentages came from too. Just really.
But you look at the people that are paying the taxes to get that there, they look at that as, if it's at 8% and they only got to raise it 2.5% or 3%, they're not getting paid the uptick. You're going to accommodate that in their tax bill. When you look at the increases that we're coming out with, we're all here in this together. We're trying, at the same time frame, you've got great status and you've done great as a school, and you've done very well. So I'm not trying, both of my parents are in public education, they're trying career, so I get it. Yeah. But it's you've got it. You're producing a great product with the students here, and you should applaud yourself on that. But at the same time frame, we need to find a way to do it more cost effectively. I don't know the answer to that. But that's, as you come into this budget, I think it's, and where it's going. I'm a little concerned on what the town's going to get, the school's going to get, and everyone's asking for more.
Can I make a comment? One thing that drives me nuts is that there's a constitutional amendment that the state of Maine will pay 55% of the cost of K through 12 education.
And we get 6.
But buried in that amendment is a fine print for wealthy communities judged by property values that become minimum receivers. We don't get even close to 55%. We get 5.5%. And there's some action in citizens of the town. Paul Coombs in particular is working with our legislative representatives, Senate and House, to try to see if there couldn't be some kind of consideration. I think Keith educated me that there are 40 school districts in the state that are considered minimum receivers. And
I'd like to know the definition that they use to classify that. I don't think there's a written one that is fair and consistent across all platforms.
Keith knows.
It's a set mill rate of your total town value. I think right now.
But what's the difference between us and another town that has a different mill rate?
So you take your total town valuation, you multiply it by the mill rate, and whatever that number is, that's the minimum that you're expected as a town to contribute towards education.
Well, and then you look at our town valuation, which we went through a huge debacle in that, where we're trying to address that now as well. That water fund at 109% actually dumps us into an even less favorable equation.
But we were minimum receiver before it.
But you look at it, and I challenged, and I said, here's what West Bath went about and did our valuation on time in the 10-year stipulation. Pittsburgh missed that, and now they're having repercussions for that. But when you look at, I said everyone in the same county should be valued at the same time, because West Bath put our valuation in. Now you're looking at the other towns that haven't caught up to our value in that scenario. So it's just, I feel that there's something, for those of you who don't know, I ran for state senate trying to fix some of these things, and I challenged someone who didn't even know that schools weren't getting 55%, and I corrected them at the debate. So that it's, a lot of people don't understand any of this when they're out there saying, oh, everybody gets 55%, I go West Bath does not. So I think there's some things that need to be done to address that also.
Well, there's work afoot to try to get the legislative representatives from the 40 districts that are being treated by substantially less than 55% to get some relief in the legislature. The problem, though, it's to some extent it's like beating your head against the wall, and the wall's concrete. The problem is that the way the state allocates money for education, it's a lump sum. And then it's partitioned out 55% here, 55% here, 5.5% here. If our 5.5% went to 40% or 35%, somebody else is going to get less. And that makes it a politically unfavorable request. So I don't know where it's going, but I'm still angry about it.
Well, so you should be. I am too. But in part of the premise of taxation is fair and equitable, distribution of it. And so I think that fighting, and I'm certainly happy to step in on behalf of what I'm sitting for this certified assessor's exam to fully better understand what's going on in taxation, how to understand it, and how to help the town from that perspective. But I think there's things that can be addressed. And I think our valuation put us even further in the hole. Hopefully that will be addressed in July 1 when we go to commitment again. I think we will have corrected the properties that are askew that should not have been, and that will hopefully bring down and make our valuation a little bit more set and within a 100% ratio. We're at 109% on waterfront.
Good news is it's 6.8% this year.
Any other comments? Comments from online?
I don't know.
Can I add one more thing in there? I think that Julie spoke with you, Emily. There's some opportunities for us to collaborate on contracts. Like the lawn mowing and certain things that we do individually that I think we perhaps can be more cost effective if we do that as a unified entity. I know you like your lawn crew. We're not opposed to using that for ours, but collaborating as we purchase to get perhaps a better bang for the buck.
Alright, no thing on that. 13, set next meeting dates and location. Our next meeting. Oh, I thought you were.
Yeah, no, they're on your agenda, but I also put them under your agenda if you need the listing.
For the, I was gonna read them all out, but
That was the next one.
yeah, the next one, so our next meeting, is March 19th. This is a workshop joint, read all these out there, right? Okay.
Well, the 19th, it's with the Budget Advisory
Yeah.
Committee, and so we'll do a joint workshop, and then, I will list a special board meeting, also on the agenda, and I'll put an agenda out for that, so that if the board wants to make any actions after workshop, that you have the capacity to do that. You can't make actions in a workshop.
So, sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
I was just curious, because I was feeling like I just have to digest this before I ask a lot of questions, but our next meeting is with the advisory board.
Yeah, it's the same schedule as last year, where we didn't even have a chance to even talk about any changes, and then they're basically doing the exact same presentation we just had. But I also found that last year, they had really good questions, and I think some of those questions
They
then
did.
prompted our conversations, so when I talked to David about it, I felt like it worked, even though it's awkward for me to do the exact same thing again. I'd almost rather everyone's just here at the same time,
Right.
but it was useful.
Okay. So then we'll have another meeting and after we get their input, then we can have more of a discussion.
Yeah, I mean, we really are scheduled to meet every Wednesday for the foreseeable future.
And it'll be nice, they can give us some feedback that they're looking at too, which will help, with our discussions in the next coming stuff.
Just a warning to the rest of you, I cannot be here for the tentative meeting on the 26th. So it's a,
March 26th.
yeah, no,
And I won't be here April 16th.
Yeah, that one, we just had enough to have the quorum to approve the warrants, I think.
I will be here, April 16th now. I wasn't gonna be
Oh,
there.
nice.
I will be here. I said grace with my presence. So our next meeting is for our regular school board meeting. Where are we?
We're just here every Wednesday.
Okay. All right, so I'm not just saying our next school board meeting. Okay, I like it.
it's the 19th.
All right, I will make a motion to adjourn. Second. Nathan, all in favor? Thank you.